Iron Valiant EX is an exciting new Future Paradox Pokemon card from the new set Paradox Rift, releasing on November 3rd and legal for tournament play on November 17th. Players everywhere are excited to see what new cards come out on top and the new decks and archetypes that form around them. Today we'll look at 4 deck lists for Iron Valiant EX, and keep in mind these are very early drafts and iterations for these deck lists, and typically with these early looks at deck lists there will be good ideas in a lot of the deck lists, and you can pick and choose which of these ideas you want to take from each variant when you're creating your own deck lists. These Iron Valiant EX archetypes will be based around the ability Tachyon Bit. Iron Valiant EX's ability Tachyon Bit reads once during your turn. When this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active spot, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So hypothetically, if you're able to set up 4 Iron Valiant EXs onto your board and switch each of them into the active spot at some point during your turn, you can put 8 damage counters on your opponent's board. I'm sure you can already think of some Pokemon to pair with this, like Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, Medicham V, even Shadow Rider Calyrex V, and the new Iron Jugulus. There's a lot of support for spreading damage and sniping the bench Pokemon and knocking multiple Pokemon out at one time, so it's going to be really exciting building decks around this Iron Valiant EX. Iron Valiant EX also has the attack Laser Blade, which does 200 damage for double Psychic and 1 colorless, and during your next turn this Pokemon can attack. Now don't forget that we have the Future Booster Energy Capsule tool card, which when attached to a future Pokemon gives that Pokemon free retreat and its attacks do 20 more damage to the active Pokemon. So this Laser Blade attack would be doing 220 with the Future Booster Energy Capsule attached, and it will give Iron Valiant EX free retreat to make switching into more Iron Valiant EXs that much easier. The first deck list we're going to take a look at is Iron Valiant EX with Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. This deck list is not using any Psychic Energies, so you will not be able to attack with Iron Valiant EX. The attackers in this deck will be Urshifu V, Urshifu VMAX, and Medicham V. Technically, you could also attack with Squawkabilly EX, but we don't really have enough basic energies in this deck list to make full use of that attack. A very cool interaction here with Urshifu V's Strafe attack doing 30 damage and switching to the bench is that if you switch into an Iron Valiant EX that has not activated its Tachyon Bit ability this turn, you can activate that even when switching into it from Urshifu V's Strafe attack. So Urshifu V already combos really well with Iron Valiant EX right off the bat. If your opponent has something like a Comfey active, you can activate an Iron Valiant EX's Tachyon Bit, then attack with Strafe for 30 more damage, and then switch into a different Iron Valiant EX to put 20 more damage, knocking out the Comfey. So the goal of this deck is to spread damage around with Tachyon Bit every turn, using your switch carts, escape ropes, and switches, which this deck plays a total of 12. And like I mentioned, you can also switch using Urshifu's Strafe attack. Then our attacks that will be doing the most damage are Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX's Gale Thrust, which does 150 if it came into the active spot this turn, and its Gmax Rapid Flow that does 120 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So setting up Pokemon so that they will have 120 or less HP remaining is going to be very important to keep in mind when placing your damage counters with Tachyon Bits. Of course, if you've been following standard format at all, you know that Yoga Loop is a very strong attack from Medicham V, because if it knocks out a Pokemon with its 2 damage counters placement, you get to take an entire extra turn. And that's another turn where you might be able to use 4 more Tachyon Bits and put 8 more damage counters on your opponent's board. These Iron Valiant EX decks will be very explosive and scary for small Pokemon like Comfeys and Sableyes, and even pre-evolutions of popular decks like Ralts and Charmander. But this is just the first deck list, so now let's move on to the second one, featuring a 4/4 line of the new Xatu. Xatu has the ability Clairvoyant Sense. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy card from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. If you attach an energy to a Pokemon in this way, draw 2 cards. This ability is really strong because you can attach energy and draw cards, both with the activation of the same ability, and you can use multiple of these if you can set up multiple Xatus. This deck is very different than the previous deck list we looked at because this is running 10 Psychic Energy and 2 Jet Energy, which means that you will be attacking with Iron Valiant EX a lot in this deck. It also includes Medicham V, and while it doesn't have any double turbo energy or any rapid strike energy, you can easily accelerate an energy to Medicham V with Xatu's ability, because Xatu doesn't have to attach to a psychic Pokemon, which is a really strong aspect of it, which means you can also use it to accelerate energy to Iron Jugulus. Iron Jugulus is going to be a massive issue for the opponent if they don't have a Manaphy with Wave Veil to protect from Iron Jugulus's homing headbutt attack. The homing headbutt attack does 50 damage to 3 of your opponent's Pokemon that have any damage counters on them. This is an incredible spread of damage, and it's not even that hard to put damage counters on 3 of your opponent's Pokemon because of Iron Valiant EX's Tachyon Bits ability. Iron Jugulus also has the Berry and Beam attack. It does 150 damage for 5 colorless energy, which is pretty horrible, but if you have Future Booster Energy Capsule attached, it only costs 3 colorless, and you'll be doing 20 more damage, so 170 damage for just 3 colorless energy as a secondary attack on a single prize Pokemon is pretty good, but of course, Homing Headbutt is the attack we're really focusing on here with Iron Jugulus. This deck is a little less focused on the switching cards, playing 4 Switch, 3 Switch Cart, and 2 Jet Energy, opposed to the Rapid Strike list we looked at, which was playing 4 Switch, 4 Switch Cart, and 4 Escape Rope. That's because we'll also be attacking with Iron Valiant EX in this deck, and there's more Future Booster Energy Capsules to give our Iron Valiant EXs and Iron Jugulus free retreat. Moving on to the third list, we have another Iron Valiant EX with Xatu deck. This one is not including Medicham V, and that's probably a mistake in my opinion. I think Medicham V is just going to be an auto-include for all Iron Valiant EX decks because it just goes so well with it. It's really not hard to pull off knocking out a small Pokemon with a couple of Tachyon Bits abilities, then a Yoga Loop, and then Yoga Loop gives you an extra turn, so it's a really strong effect to pass up. I think it should always be included in Iron Valiant EX decks. This deck list is playing Mimikyu with that Safeguard ability that will stop V and EX Pokemon from attacking it. It also plays Mew EX, which you can accelerate energy to with Xatu and then copy any huge attacks that your opponent has. So this could help against big decks like Charizard EX that Iron Valiant might have a hard time taking down. But this also includes the TM De-Evolution, which devolves all of your opponent's Pokemon's highest evolved staged Pokemon back to their hand. So if you can spread damage on a couple of Charizard EXs and then devolve them down to Charmander, your opponent might not be able to rare candy them back down, but if you had enough damage on them, those Charmanders are going to be knocked out anyway. And finally, this is a list that I personally drafted up using some Arven and Forest Seal Stone, also including that TM De-Evolution in here. But I also included Shadow Rider Calyrex V. So Shadow Rider Calyrex V has 2 good attacks, but the second one is kind of like a little bit of a weaker version of Iron Jugulus's attack. So this is Astral Barrage for 3 energy. Choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon and put 5 damage counters on each of them. The thing is, this can get around Manaphy, but Iron Jugulus can get around the new Jirachi. So you can use Calyrex V or Iron Jugulus depending on if your opponent has Manaphy or Jirachi on the board. Of course, if your opponent has both Manaphy and Jirachi, then you're going to have to take care of that with Tachyon Bits, plus Alakazam's Painful Spoons to move that around, knock out either of those Pokemon, and then take care of them with either Shadow Rider Calyrex V or Iron Jugulus's Homing Headbutt. I hope you enjoyed today's video and the 4 deck lists we looked at for Iron Valiant EX. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content, and you can check out ways to support my channel in the description down below, including coupon codes, affiliate links, and more information about the coaching and articles I offer over at Metafy.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.